Good evening and welcome to Coach World TV. My name is Terry Yoffe, and tonight as my guest I have Dr. Rich Atkins. Hi, Rich.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. You?
Good.
Good.
So Rich is Managing Director of Improving Communications, which is a New York-based corporate training firm. So communications,
The hot topic,
a hot
right?
topic and a very important one.
Yes, it is.
So
Communication is everything, isn't it?
yes,
I mean, if you
exactly.
think we have three basic modes of communication. We have speech, we have writing, and we have body language.
Right.
And what improving communications addresses in all three of these is how we can better move audiences. How we can get people to not only understand what we want, but also to get a better understanding of what they want. So when you really have that, when you have listening, when you have communicating, you have a true connection with others.
Couldn't have been put better, but you're the
Good.
communication guy. So
Good.
how did you segue into this? I know you're a doctor. How did your path get to improving communications?
Yeah, I was a teacher of high school English,
Okay.
and I did that for about 12 years, and transitioned myself into college teaching, where I was able to then finish my doctorate. And in 2001, started improving communications just with a website and an idea. That was it.
Okay.
And you know, that's good news for your coaches who are watching. No one will grade you on your motivation on how you started your business. Start your business, you know. And so I got a domain name, I got a website, and said, okay, there, I'm in business. You know, of course, other things followed after that.
Right.
I had to incorporate and really develop a product.
Okay.
And like so many of the people who watch your show, Terry, someone has to take a chance on you somewhere. And when that first client comes, that's the credibility building. And it just
absolutely.
grows from there.
Right. All of us coaches know that.
Yes.
You know, when you get started, it's, you know, starting a website, putting out, if you will, some kind of a little shingle, metaphorically, and figuring out how to landscape and mine to get that client or clients.
And what I want to say about that is with the website, with the marketing material, it's so tempting to say so much. And I've done it myself. Maybe you have to, where you have the business card with both sides loaded with text.
Oh, yeah. There are people that have that.
Sure, and there comes a point where we want to do more with less. And so with a lot of the writing exercises we do, we get people to say what they want to say, but then I'll say, great, say it in 10 words or fewer.
Yeah.
And that's a real challenge because people want to go on and
Yeah.
belabor a point.
Actually, I put a presentation together called The Art of Communication. It's all about, from the point of view of my presentation, it's all about effective influencing and persuading. And one of the things I say, you know, we think we're communicating every day, but all we're doing is talking. And I think there's a big difference.
We're only communicating if someone's listening.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we are only talking.
Right. And how many people actually really listen because they've got all that chatter going on in their head. Well, I got to do this, and gee, how am I going to answer? And maybe I have to get my nails done, or maybe I got to go to the grocery store. So, in effect, they're not really listening to what's being said. They may hear a few words here and there, but they may not be hearing the essence or the message of what's being said.
Sure. We are in constant competition with all the distractions that surround us. And so listening is, well, it's very interesting. We at Improving Communications did a project where we interviewed professional musicians and asked 7 of them, what can we learn from you about how to listen? Now remember, these are men and women who have made their career, made their money from music. So if they can't listen, they're dead in the water.
Yeah.
And so each of them provided input on how Improving Communications readers of these manuals can become better at listening. And in so many cases, the answer came back as focus. You need to pay attention sometimes not to the beats, not to the words, but to the spaces in between.
Interesting.
And really, you can get so much emotional communication from what someone isn't saying.
Yes, that's what, in coaching, we talk about there are 3 levels of listening. What's going on in here, the me, or listening to the client, and then leaning in and listening to what's going on around. The energy, that, or what's not being said.
And the difference there is between hearing and listening. You've heard the expression, I hear you. That's a terrible thing to say to someone. I hear you means that you're making noise and it's registered in my ears. But I'm listening to you means something very different.
That's great. Good point. I mean, Rich and I had dinner, and he just came out with these amazing pearls of wisdom and thoughts on communication that, I was sitting there eating it all up because there was such great little juicy tidbits that came out of your mouth.
Well, so
see, I was listening.
The lesson for you is next time have dinner with us.
Yes.
One of the things we talked about, and I'll introduce here, is...
Be careful now.
Oh, I'll behave.
Thank you.
Is that so many times here in the New York area, people mispronounce words. And I'm going to, I hope, touch a raw nerve with some people. The word ask. A-S-K. It is a simple 3-letter word. And how many people in this New York area, but by the way, it is throughout the nation, how many people mispronounce it as axe? How many?
I'm sure there are many. Let me ask you a question. So they eliminate the S and they go to the K?
They actually
or combine
invert letters. So what we have is
okay.
AKS or AXE, depending on how you want to spell it. But my message to any of my audiences when they're in front of me working on their communication skills is if you mispronounce a simple 3-letter word, do you really think I'm going to pull out my wallet and spend money there? And so to give you a good example of will I pull out my wallet if you make mistakes is this. I know a man who irrigates golf courses professionally. And one year he just couldn't keep up with the work. So he put a golf course out to contract. And 2 bids came in, one for $1.6 million, one for $1.8 million. Now, which one do you think he went with? Obviously.
The lower one.
Of course he went with the higher one. Yes, he did. Why did he go with the higher one? Because the lower one had errors in the proposal. And all he said was, if that person's going to make errors in the proposal, what is he going to do out on the golf course under my name?
Wow.
That's a $200,000 set of errors. I don't know, spelling errors, writing, grammar, math, whatever. But all of those issues cost someone a $1.6 million contract, series of income.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and I think, excuse me, in today's digital world, when we email, when we text, we don't think about, especially in texting, we use so many, 3 letters which mean something else.
Sure. Text abbreviations.
Yeah, right. That even in emails, sometimes you get words that aren't spelled right or they're not the right word.
Sure.
Or,
I can give you great examples of that.
And especially,
Terry,
the other thing is...
Terry, I want your opinion. Now, I just said that out loud. No one would say that. But you've seen it written.
Oh, absolutely.
Let me borrow you car. And people write this.
Right.
So the other piece of that is the text abbreviations. I know hiring managers who, if they find an error in the resume, that's their threshold. It's garbage. Next candidate. That's their threshold. And again, if someone's going to be this careless on a piece of paper,
how are they going to be in the job?
So errors cost people so much. And again, this is for the coaches. If you're pitching business to prospective clients, and I guess my message to any of them is monitor closely how you communicate. I'll give you a terrible example. You know why it's terrible?
They're great
You know why it's terrible?
They're not
Because
terrible.
it's terrible because it happened to me. It's terrible because it happened to me.
If it didn't happen to you, what would it
Here goes.
be?
I sent an email to a prospective client, and I said, please register for the class. We'll invoice you later, so register online, and when you get to the payment prompt, shut it down. I misspelled the word shut.
What'd you say, shoot?
I misspelled the word shut in an email.
And what happened?
A couple of days later, I just happened to be going through that folder. It didn't even register. I happened to be going through that folder, and I looked at the email, and I said, oh my goodness, this is bad. I had no choice but to email the 2 people who got it at that company. They told me the story behind it. Are you ready? IT called them up and said, listen, we have a quarantined email that came in for you. Do you want us to release it? Who's it from? Rich Atkins? Yeah, okay, yeah, release. We know what he did. They looked at, you look at the keyboard and you say, well, oh yeah, those letters are rather close to one another. So we know what mistake he made. And we know it wasn't intentional.
Right.
But that's a big shame on me. You know why? Who should be proofreading his emails?
You.
I would think so. And so one of the things I always tell people when I'm giving a training, a business writing, public speaking, anything like that is, I'm not above any of this. I'm not better than anybody else in that regard. I make fewer mistakes, and I make less egregious mistakes. Well, except for that one. But
well, but it's true. And I think part of it is when we attempt, at least I see it, and I try not to do it, we communicate on our phones. Forget texting when you're sending an email. And you're trying to use your fingers on those, keys that are so sensitive to touch that you know what goes out. In lieu of a big keyboard with an email, they're getting this little thing with all kinds of mistakes. And then on the bottom of it says, please forgive
brevity and typos.
Right.
This was sent on a smartphone.
Right.
Now, there are a couple of pieces there. And I'll ask your audience, and I'll ask you, have you ever gotten an email riddled with errors?
Oh, yes.
Okay. That sender is telling you one of 2 things. Either, this is the best I could do, I didn't know any better. Or, the other thing is, I did know better, and I don't care about you. Now that sounds a little harsh, right? But if you think about it, if you're sending, say, to the president of XYZ company, would you be careless?
No, not at all.
So that means care. But wait, if it's just to this lower person, maybe it's just to someone lower in the organization, I can get away with that. No, I can't. It's a level of care.
Yes, I agree. And what you said before, we live in such a fast-paced, faster than I've ever known environment that things have to get done. So if you're, if somebody is sending me an email and there's, they're abbreviating or there's mistakes in it, I think part of it is they just got to get it out, and they don't think.
Improving communications goes counterculture in that regard. Culture tells you, move, 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 get it done, don't look back, just get it out. Improving communications says no. You've got to put on the brakes. You've got to slow down. You've got to care. If you don't care, then fine, move at that speed, make all the mistakes you want, good luck with it. But if you really want to show the people that you care, Hallmark said it best. Do you remember that slogan? When you care enough
to send the very best.
You got it. That's what it is.
I personally don't do that. I mean, certainly if I send emails out, and I do a lot of them, I'm fairly careful as to what I'm sending out.
Good.
To make sure that, there are no typos or whatever type words.
Or whatnot.
And even on my Droid, if I send an email, I respond. I make sure not to make any mistakes. I'm very careful
Mm-hmm.
about that. One or two sometimes kind of
Yes. We're all
squeak
capable.
through.
We're all capable of making mistakes. I do. When I see them, I'm a little embarrassed by them. One of my biggest, one of my most common mistakes is "Dear Terry." Dear will be capitalized. Terry will not. It is. I don't know why. It's just one of those things where that shift key and the next word just doesn't. It doesn't connect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where what I have to do is stop after I've finished typing and not hit Control Enter like I want to. I need to stop and look at the screen, read it as though I'm the reader, and go through a checklist, a simple
Yeah,
checklist
right,
to make sure
right.
that I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish.
But most machines, if you're doing it at home, there is a spell check.
Yes, increasing your laziness, increasing your carelessness. And well, for instance, we all know that spell check will take words that are spelled correctly and respell them for us if spell check doesn't think that they're right.
Oh, they're right. They'll put in their own word.
Right, or someone's name, for instance. If we've typed someone's name that's not recognized by spell check, my daughter's name is Kira, Ciara. It's a
Oh, is
tough,
that how she
it's a
spells
tough
it?
spelling. Yes, the
Usually
Irish
it's
spelling.
Kiera.
This is the Irish spelling.
Ciara.
So spell check usually underlines it. Luckily, it doesn't auto-correct it. But if it did, I'd be interested. In fact, I should test that out and see what it comes up with, because certain words do get. Please advise. Many people have told me. By the way, I've turned spell check off on my computer, so I don't know this. People tell me when I'm teaching a session that please advise usually is suggested by their word processor to be please advice.
Yes.
And the question comes, my word processor always says it's wrong. I don't know why it does that. By the way, a couple of things to stay away from in communication. Never write please advise to someone. Never write that to someone.
Please advise. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it'll come out, please advice?
No, because it's not natural conversation. With
okay.
email, I want to build rapport with people. And if I'm, like I wouldn't say to you, hey, I'm thinking of buying this new car. Please advise. I wouldn't say that to you. I'd say, I'm thinking of buying this car. What do you think? Or I might say, what are your thoughts? So with all of, like, please be advised, if you start an email.
Very formal.
If you start an email with that, you're saying, we don't know each other. And we don't want to know each other. And we won't know each other. Other things we go over in our writing classes, avoid the word unfortunately.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Unfortunately,
I use that word. I'm
unfortunately means prepare yourself to not like what I'm going to say. Don't judge the news, just deliver it. So, for instance, tonight we had dinner, and if I said I'd like, such and such salad, and the server said, "Ooh, unfortunately we're out of that," that might be very fortunate for me. Maybe that might open to don't judge the news for me, just deliver the news.
Okay.
Make sense?
It does. I do use unfortunately a lot.
And another thing we talked about at dinner was negativity in communication.
Yes.
So much of our communication is negative.
Yes.
So when we can avoid a no or a word that ends in N apostrophe T and substitute
like
didn't, can't, won't, if we can substitute them
goodness.
with what we can or will instead. So for instance, do you have Greek salad tonight? No, we don't have that. Well, that's a negative. Do you have Greek salad? Well, we have niçoise salad or we have a Cobb salad. Which would be better for you? So I've answered now with two options, both of them yes. And I said to you no. I ended up saying no to you. I just gave you two yes options.
Well, so here's on the second one where somebody says we have a niçoise salad and we have a garden salad. Either of two things, or either of two things,
both are acceptable,
can be heard, which is the person asking for the Greek salad may think the person didn't hear me because they're offering me this and this, and they haven't quite answered my request, or said, we do not have
there comes a point where
a
reasonably
Greek salad.
you do have to say no.
However, we do have something as a substitute.
Yes, there comes a point where you do have to do that. But when possible, on first communication, I'd like tickets for Monday night's game. What we do have are Sunday and Tuesday tickets. If that person doesn't understand that that's a no for Monday, then I may need to say no.
Right.
But if I can, on first try to avoid saying no, I'm better off. One of the things that we said, that we talked about over dinner, was here in New York, if, for instance, I said, great, I'll have the Cobb salad, what would most servers in New York answer that with? No problem.
Right.
No
We're
problem.
all guilty of saying, no problem.
No problem.
I do that.
Can I have the such and such? No problem. Now that's interesting that people would answer a yes with two words, one of which being no.
And the other is problem.
Right. Two negatives
so
there.
Double negative.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I guess equals a positive, so it does become a yes.
Kind of cancels each other out.
The point there is, it's so interesting for people to double the words when they could just say sure, or okay, or yes.
Yeah. I hear you.
Wait, you're listening to me.
I'm listening to you.
Aha.
Yes, I am listening. You know, one of the things as coaches is we are trained to really listen to people, hopefully. Otherwise, we do not get the essence of what they're actually saying.
Right.
And try not to say but, and
I'll touch that in a minute.
Yes. It's so ingrained to say no problem. Whereas there are some words I will stop myself and think of another way of saying something.
Sure.
Because I'm trained to do that when I work with clients, that I have to be cognizant of what comes out of my mouth and how I frame it.
Someone calls you and says, Terry, can I have an appointment for Tuesday? I can't do Tuesday, which really comes across as I won't do Tuesday. I'd rather hear you say, I have Thursday at 3:30 or I have Friday at 7, which is better for you. And whenever we do that, we're always offering two options, both of them yes.
This is really interesting.
And it comes across as a yes to someone. How can I make this a yes? How can I make this a memorable, positive experience for you, as opposed to do you remember that, what was the game show, Richard Dawson, Family Feud? They'd have the X's, you know? Rather than give someone that negative experience, I'll say, here's what we can do. And by the way, it works magic on children. So you can say, you can have broccoli for dinner or you can have carrots. Which would you like? Now, I've given my child the illusion of choice. The illusion of choice. Isn't that great? And my child feels respected and feels like she or he is in control.
Right.
Because I've given choices. I've given options.
Either broccoli or carrots.
They're my choices.
Right.
And same thing with you. I have Tuesday at 3:30 or I have Friday at 7. Both are your choices. But you've given me the illusion of choice. I feel like I'm in control. I feel like I have respect.
I have to say that I will say to someone, unfortunately,
Prepare yourself to not like this answer.
That day is full. However, I could offer you something or something.
And however and but, undo what came before it.
Yes,
Which
is what I really try not to. It's
however,
as a connector.
And I'll tell you where I learned that. That was from improv comedy.
Yeah.
Improv comedy, where we learned to, rather than say, what are you doing? I'm playing basketball. No, you're not. We wouldn't say that. That would cancel something out on stage. So we'd say, yes, you are. And you're juggling babies, whatever it is. And then the person would cooperate with that. So the point there is, when you have the word but, something surrounding it is not true.
Right.
Terry, not to be a jerk, but. And when I say not to be a jerk, but, I'm about to be a jerk. Terry, not to be mean to you, but. Terry, not to insult you, however, here comes the insult. So something surrounding but is not true.
And we actually did work with that with a lady, Sue Walden,
I know
from
the name,
the
yeah.
West Coast. She came to our ICF meeting and did an improv with us. And you know, we looked at when people say da 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 da, but it's like negating what that person said
Sure.
before.
It erases it.
Right. As opposed to and, which is including that, and here's another thought.
Yeah.
You know.
And there is a time where it's appropriate, where you may want to say, I know you'll think this is impossible, but I do want to erase that. I do want to bring that contrast out. I need to use it sparingly. I need to use it appropriately. And so much of communication is audience appropriateness. So for instance, before when you talked about text abbreviations, I'll even introduce into that emoticons, the little smiley faces. All of those, people come to me and they say, Rich, what's your thought on these? And I say, they're perfect, they're excellent, they're wonderful, with the right audience. It's got to be used with the right audience.
Surely.
So now in my years of teaching college, you know, these young 18-year-olds would come into class and not knowing my communication or instruction style would write their first paper, and it would be a bloodbath for all of them because they'd get these papers back with just red everywhere and grades that they didn't expect. Now, I always offered my students the opportunity to rewrite for a higher grade, and I will guarantee you that on the second paper we did not see the letter U for the personal pronoun YOU. We did not see the number 4 for the preposition FOR. All of these lazy abbreviations that these young people brought in, bad habits, not even thinking, they just, they learned quickly.
So we're going to stop for a minute and have you give our audience your website, because we are, believe it or not, we have 1 minute left.
Wow. Improvingcommunications.com. Come and visit us at improvingcommunications.com. Little spiel here, yes.
Absolutely.
You can sign up for our public business writing classes, public speaking, customer service, leadership. We also have sales training. Larry Sharp, some of you may know, is an Improving Communications instructor, and he's our director at Improving Communications. Very happy to be working with him.
Yes, Larry is unbelievable. He was on our TV show about 2 years ago, so we had a really good time with him. I always enjoy him.
So, and just to close,
a couple of more seconds.
My parting remarks to your coaches would be, pay close attention to how you represent yourself both in speech and writing, because those are the only records that people have of you. Yes, your website is an online business card, but if you are presenting yourself in a way that will push people away or drive
I'm going to stop you and
say
thank you for coming.
You want to make sure it's the right thing.
I really enjoyed having you. I'm sorry that we had to kind of jump in here, but thank you so much. It was really great having you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.